The moment my manager smiled while telling me I was not leadership material, something inside me quietly changed forever, because I suddenly realized the company that depended on me every single day had already decided my future. Without truly seeing my value, I walked out of that meeting looking calm on the outside, but deep inside I had already made a decision that would force everyone in the building to discover what happened when the person holding everything together finally stopped caring. Everyone else stopped. My name is Claire Bennett, and for almost 4 years I worked as the Senior Operations Coordinator at Northbridge Dynamics in Seattle, where my job title sounded ordinary even though my responsibilities reached into almost every department in the company. Every crisis somehow landed on my desk, because I remembered every procedure, every client preference, every hidden shortcut, and every mistake we had already solved, making me the invisible person everyone relied on without ever giving proper credit. When I first joined Northbridge Dynamics, the operations department was barely functioning because several experienced employees had resigned within weeks of each other, leaving behind incomplete files, confused coworkers, and frustrated clients who were already questioning whether they should take their business elsewhere. I spent months rebuilding every broken system from the ground up, organizing digital records, creating training manuals, simplifying complicated workflows, and quietly solving problems before executives even realized they existed. My direct manager was a polished executive named Victoria Hayes, who loved standing confidently in front of clients while presenting successful projects that had actually been designed and organized by people working quietly behind the scenes, especially me. Every annual review ended exactly the same way because she praised my dedication, thanked me for always being dependable, offered a small raise that barely covered inflation, and promised that bigger opportunities would surely come if I just stayed patient. Everything finally came to a breaking point when I applied for an operations director position that perfectly matched the work I had already been performing for years. Yet Victoria dismissed my application after only a brief conversation and claimed I lacked executive presence despite depending on my judgment every single day. Instead of arguing, I thanked her politely, returned to my desk with a smile that hid my disappointment, and quietly decided that beginning the very next morning I would perform only the duties listed in my contract, allowing everyone to discover exactly how much of the company had been resting on invisible shoulders they had never truly appreciated. The following morning I arrived exactly at 9 o'clock instead of my usual early start, carrying nothing more than my coffee and a quiet determination to respect the same boundaries the company had always expected from everyone else except me. I answered my own assignments carefully, ignored problems that belonged to other departments, and resisted every instinct to jump in whenever I noticed confusion spreading through the office, because I finally understood that constantly rescuing everyone had only made my contributions invisible. By lunchtime, several coworkers had already stopped by my desk with puzzled expressions, asking why I had not fixed delayed shipments, updated client reports, or prepared executive meeting notes before anyone requested them like I always had in the past. I smiled politely and explained that every responsibility had an assigned owner according to company policy, adding that I believed following official procedures would help everyone understand how the organization was supposed to operate without relying on one person. That evening I left the office exactly when my workday ended, ignoring the surprised looks from people who had grown accustomed to seeing my desk lamp glowing long after everyone else had driven home. Instead of opening my laptop after dinner, I spent the evening cooking homemade pizza with my 12-year-old son Ethan, listening to his stories from school, and realizing how many precious moments I had sacrificed for a company that barely noticed the difference. The next morning, the atmosphere inside Northbridge Dynamics felt completely different because worried conversations echoed through the hallways, managers rushed between conference rooms, and unanswered questions seemed to appear faster than anyone could solve them. Victoria finally approached my desk asking where she could find the detailed implementation plan for an important client presentation, and I calmly reminded her that the complete documentation had always been stored inside the shared company system exactly where I had organized it months earlier. She opened the enormous collection of files with growing frustration because every document was thorough enough for anyone willing to study it, yet nobody had ever taken the time to understand the systems while I was quietly keeping everything running behind the scenes. As I returned my attention to my own assignments, I realized this was no longer about proving anyone wrong or seeking revenge because it was about finally allowing the truth to reveal itself naturally, showing everyone that loyalty should never require someone to disappear behind their own hard work. Before the afternoon was over, my work phone had filled with missed calls, urgent emails, and messages marked high priority. But I refused to answer after office hours because I had finally chosen to separate my career from my personal life. I spent the evening helping Ethan build a model rocket for his science project, and while we laughed over tiny pieces scattered across the kitchen table, I realized that peace felt far more rewarding than constantly chasing approval that never seemed to arrive. When I returned to work the following morning, the office looked as though it had survived a storm because exhausted. Employees hurried through the hallways carrying stacks of paperwork while anxious conversations echoed behind every closed conference room door. One of our largest customers had threatened to delay a multi-million-dollar agreement after several important requests were overlooked, and the managers who usually acted confident suddenly looked completely overwhelmed, without someone quietly solving every problem before it became visible. Just after 10 o'clock, the executive assistant appeared beside my desk and politely asked me to attend an emergency meeting with the leadership team, where the company president, Daniel Brooks, was already waiting with a serious expression that immediately told me the situation had become far more critical than anyone expected. As soon as I entered the room, he thanked me for coming and admitted that the company desperately needed my help, while Victoria remained silent, unable to hide the frustration written across her face. Daniel asked what it would take for me to guide the company through the crisis, and before I could answer, Victoria unexpectedly announced that the promotion I had recently been denied could still be mine if I agreed to fix everything. Immediately, I remained calm as I explained that another respected company had recently approached me with a leadership opportunity because they recognized my experience and believed my skills deserved far greater responsibility than I had been given for years. Silence settled over the room as everyone exchanged nervous glances, and Daniel finally admitted that losing me would create consequences far beyond replacing another employee because the systems, client relationships, and operational knowledge I had developed could not simply be handed to someone else overnight. I placed a neatly prepared resignation letter on the table, explaining that I had not made my decision out of anger but out of self-respect, knowing that whatever happened next would finally reveal how much my work had truly been worth all along. Daniel quietly picked up my resignation letter, read every line without saying a word, and then placed it back on the table. Before looking directly into my eyes with a level of sincerity I had never seen from anyone in the executive office, he admitted that the leadership team had underestimated my influence for far too long and asked me to meet with him privately before making any final decision that could permanently change both my future and the future of the company. Inside his office, Daniel explained that he had recently reviewed several company performance reports and noticed my name attached to nearly every successful project completed over the last 4 years. Even though the public recognition had usually gone to someone else, he offered me a newly created position as Director of Operational Strategy with more than double my current salary, flexible working hours, and full authority to redesign the company systems that I had originally built from the ground up. Although the offer was generous, I did not accept it immediately because money alone could not erase years of being ignored whenever important decisions were made or promotions became available. I honestly told Daniel that another company had offered me the chance to begin again in an environment where I would not have to spend years proving my worth before anyone believed I belonged at the leadership table. Daniel listened carefully instead of interrupting, then explained that building a reputation from the beginning at another organization would require starting over with new clients, unfamiliar systems, and coworkers who had not yet learned to trust my judgment. His words made sense, but I also knew that remaining where I was would only work if genuine respect replaced empty promises, because I had no intention of returning to the exhausting routine that had slowly consumed both my confidence and my personal life. Before leaving his office, Daniel encouraged me to spend the weekend thinking about the decision without pressure, assuring me that the written offer would remain on his desk until Monday morning, while the leadership team handled the immediate challenges themselves. As I walked out of the building that evening and saw Ethan waiting for me, with a bright smile outside the community library, I realized that for the first time in years my future was no longer being decided by someone else, but by the choices I was finally brave enough to make. The weekend gave me something I had not experienced in years, which was the chance to think without endless emails, emergency phone calls, or the pressure of fixing problems that never truly belonged to me in the first place. After talking with my older sister over coffee and spending Sunday hiking with Ethan through a nearby nature trail, I realized that success meant far more than an impressive job title, because real success allowed me to enjoy the people who mattered most. Early Monday morning, I arrived at the office before anyone else and walked straight into Danielle's office with complete confidence. Carrying no resignation letter and no list of demands beyond what I genuinely believed would create lasting change, I accepted the leadership position on two conditions, explaining that I wanted full authority to build a talented operations team based on skill rather than office politics, and that every employee would receive proper recognition for the work they actually performed. Daniel agreed without hesitation, because he understood that the company could no longer afford to reward appearances while ignoring the people who quietly delivered real results every single day behind the scenes. Later that morning, the official announcement introduced me as the new director of operational strategy, and the reactions throughout the office ranged from surprise to excitement, as many coworkers admitted they had always known I was the person holding everything together. Victoria congratulated me privately before admitting that she had spent years confusing quiet dedication with ordinary performance, and although her apology could never erase the past, I accepted it because carrying resentment would only prevent me from becoming the leader I wanted to be. Looking back now, I understand that the greatest lesson was never about earning a promotion, because it was about recognizing my own value, protecting my time, and refusing to let anyone else define the limits of what I could achieve. If my journey teaches anything, it is that talent alone is never enough unless you also believe you deserve respect. Speak up for your value, and have the courage to walk away when your hard work is constantly overlooked, because sometimes the strongest move you can make is simply refusing to carry burdens that were never yours to begin with. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.